Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for ZBT from home. This session is So You Want to Be a Doctor. Special thank you to the Zeta Beta Tau Foundation for their generous partnership in support of ZBT from home. Today we are joined by three alumni brothers who are at different stages of their career. We have Scott, who's currently in medical school, and Yoaav and Zach, who are both practicing physicians. And so we are going to let them each introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started with some questions. So Scott, can you kick us off?
Good start. I was already muted. Hi, I'm Scott. I went to Binghamton for undergrad, and I graduated in 2019. So I went right into medical school, so I'm a first year now. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me. I'm currently at NYIT College of Osteopathic Medicine, so if you have any questions about the difference between MD and DO, you can also ask me about that. I live on Long Island. We're in the center of COVID-19, so if you have any questions, definitely hit me up.
Thank you, Scott. Dr. Nahmias.
Hi, my name is Zach Nahmias. I graduated from the University of Memphis, the MMU chapter in 2010. I went to medical school at the University of Tennessee in Memphis from 2010 to 2014. I then headed to Boston, where I was an intern for the 14-15 year, and then I went to St. Louis, where I was a dermatology resident from 2015 to 2018 at WashU in St. Louis. When I graduated and finished boards in 2018, I moved to upstate New York, splendiferous upstate New York. It's actually snowing right now as I look outside the window. And I live in Watertown, New York, where I work for a hospital where I'm the director for dermatology for a new service line that started in 2018. We're real upstate. It's not just Schenectady. Like, this is like Ontario, basically. It's a very rural population, and we provide a full service dermatology set to the population up here. And we've just been navigating the waters of COVID-19.
Thank you. We've got Eli from Western Ontario, so he appreciates the true
Ontario reference.
Northern shout out. So thank you. And Dr. Krauthammer.
Hey guys, I'm Yoaav Krauthammer. I am a 2003 graduate of Lambda chapter, Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Went to medical school at The Ohio State University from 2003 to 2007. And I've had a bit of a journey. I did my residency in internal medicine in Charleston, South Carolina, and then went to New Orleans, Louisiana for my cardiology fellowship. And then finally ended up back in Cleveland for a fellowship in cardiac electrophysiology. And so I do a lot of pacemakers, procedures, things like that. I've had my first job was in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, worked there for 3 years, and then moved down to Kansas City and have been here for about 2 years since then. So feel free to ask me any questions about any of the specialties or how to navigate or any of the stuff you can do as a brother to try to help maximize your chances and things of that nature.
Thank you all so much. And we are so grateful that we have the three of you on with us today. So we're going to start, and we'll start, Scott, with you with this question. So talk us through a little bit about your path to medical school. So some things to consider, the application process, how you were selecting your school, anything that would be helpful as these brothers are embarking on that process.
Sure. So you probably know this, but just to run through it so then everyone is on the same page, applying to medical school is an absolute mess with a lot of different things that they require you to do. You need to take the Mcat, which is around a 7 to 8 hour exam. You need to get letters of recommendation from different types of people that you've worked with in the past. I see that Mcat book. You're on your right track. We've been finding more and more that people are not applying, the end of their junior year and then getting their interviews like during their senior year so they can go directly in to medical school. It tends to be the case that people will take a year, take 2 years to build their resume and their CV to really get the best chances of getting into as many schools as possible. I pushed myself my junior year, studied for the Mcat. When I took the Mcat, I actually didn't do that well. I did the average for NYIT-Com at the time, so I mean, it was okay. But I think that, it really takes a strong candidate to really get into medical school, and that's why the acceptance rates are unfortunately so low. But yeah, so I applied end of my junior year. I received tons of rejections. I got 3 interviews and I got 2 acceptances. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And anyone that applies to medical school will be in the same position in medical school when they have to apply for residency. So it's a big mentoring, path. So luckily things like this can happen and you can get all your questions answered if you have any.
Thank you. Yoaav.
So I did not want to go to medical school when I started in college. I was going to be an engineer. I ended up getting injured. I played soccer in college. I ended up getting injured my sophomore year and started doing a lot of rehab work. And so I started getting a little more interested in the medical profession. I was doing biomedical engineering, so I thought that would be how I would do things. And then I got a fellowship in between my junior and senior years and realized very quickly that I hated engineering and didn't actually want to do that for a career. And so at that point in time, I started looking at medical schools, kind of fit in organic chemistry in 2 semesters in between junior and senior years in the summertime. And so that was terrible. But then ended up taking the MCATs right at the end of summer between junior and senior years. I also didn't do that great on the MCAT. I don't know what it's out of right now, but at the time I got kind of an average score. My understanding is my score right now probably wouldn't get me in the door at any place that I applied to. So certainly I think it takes, the scores are changing, but really what I found was the amount of work I had done for research and engineering and having a different story than most people who do biology or chemistry and then go get their MCAT score and then do some work in a lab. So having a different story, I think, is a really important aspect to trying to do the application. It stands you apart when everybody's looking at 5,000 of the same people. Having something that sets you apart is probably a really good idea. So try to find something that's original to you, that is unique to you, that you can talk about passionately at an interview. And that really helps a lot more than I think just numbers on a paper.
Thank you. And Zach.
So I always knew I wanted to be a physician. Originally my plan was my thought was to go into pediatrics because that's your first exposure to doctors, really. I went to undergrad at the University of Memphis and majored in biology and psychology, and took kind of a more traditional approach. I did research in biology and did study abroad. I think Yoaav's made great comments just now about needing to set yourself apart. I think the other thing people are looking for besides the kind of the unique factors is someone that's engaged with their community, that's gone on study abroad trips, that's gotten outside their comfort zone. Because reality is that when you do medicine, you're going to see people from all walks of life, all different belief systems, everything you can imagine. And it's your professional responsibility to be able to go in and help that person with whatever issue they have. So the more that you demonstrate that you're able to be that person and you're in your comfort zone in that moment, the more that's going to be a intriguing factor to an admissions committee for medical school.
Thank you. So we know that there probably isn't a typical day when we think about medical school or as a practicing physician, but talk us through some of those things that you can expect if A, you were in medical school and then B, go on to be a doctor. What are kind of those things that you see on an average day, maybe not a typical day? And let's start with Zach.
So I do dermatology, and we, each field can get pretty subspecialized, meaning each field, like big field of medicine, dermatology, cardiology, gastroenterology, et cetera. And in dermatology, in the rural location that I'm at, we try to act as generalist dermatologists, meaning we do people that come in with acne, warts, psoriasis, people that need skin checks to see if they have skin cancer, they've had histories of skin cancer. We do people that have crazy rashes, people that have simple rashes. We do procedures like excisions and certain types of skin cancer surgeries to make sure that people's skin cancers are gone. We do cosmetics like Botox, that kind of stuff. So we're doing a wide range of services. Our day, I currently work Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to about 6 p.m. And I'm off on Fridays. We see patients the whole day. I see probably about 35 to 42 patients in a day. And that includes the full range of everything going on. If it's a procedural day, typically it's not as many patients because it takes longer per patient to do stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty standard set. See a patient every 15 to 30 minutes for general dermatology, and then a lunch from 12 to 1. We have a nursing staff of 2 nurses per doctor. So that's pretty much what my daily existence is. We do get hospital consultations, meaning people that are really sick in the hospital that really need like with a skin finding. Sometimes we go in and help the inpatient team and see if we might be able to help with part of the story there and help the patient get out of the hospital.
Thank you. Yoaav.
So I am more of a proceduralist than seeing patients in clinic. I do about 3.5 to 4 days a week in the operating room. I do typically 2 to 5 surgeries depending on what I'm doing. The thing I like the most about my profession is I get to do like just a wide range of things, anything from putting in pacemakers, taking out pacemakers, doing ablation procedures for heart rhythm disorders, doing all sorts of inpatient hospital consults, working together with interventional cardiologists, trying to get a lot of really sick patients to have their heart start functioning again, and work really closely with my cardiothoracic surgery team as well. So my days are pretty up in the air. You don't really know what you're getting until you walk in there and do it. But it is nice to know that when you're done, you're done. So a lot of times I work Monday through Friday. I have call times that we all have to take. Calls are never going to be fun. And so just go in understanding that when you're on call, it's going to suck. And don't be mad at the nurses when they call you because you signed up for it. Other than that, if I'm done at 2 o'clock, I get to go home. If I'm done at 7 o'clock, I go home at 7 o'clock. If I get a phone call at 2 a.m., you're probably going in at 2 a.m. So it is what it is. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people that have to go sit at a desk and stare at a computer screen all day. I get to cut people for a living, so it's really not the worst thing that ever happened.
Thank you. And Scott.
So they're living the dream. I'm still working for it. As a medical student, it kind of is what you make of it. As you know, you probably all know, there's a lot of different types of research and very specific research within medicine, and you're not expected to know all of it. So you really try to get the highest yield material, from your lectures, from your medical school, and you try to know that to the best of your ability, and you go in there and do your best. And that's kind of what medicine is anyway. I wake up at 7 o'clock every day, and I'm pretty much working by 8 a.m. I try to take breaks, but at the same time, I know that if I put in the work now, my life will be easier later. As a medical student, you get to make your own schedule. like, especially in my school, attendance is not mandatory for lectures, but it's like mandatory for labs. So that could be one of the things that, you may want to consider when, deciding which medical school to attend. And, so I get to make my own schedule. I get to work at my own pace. And, it's challenging to be a medical student, but you do have time to live your life. A lot of people are very scared when they're going into medicine, saying that, I won't be able to ever like sit and just enjoy the evening. You can definitely do that. For example, today I did my lectures in the morning and I wasn't feeling that well, had some coffee and feeling a little bit better. So day to day could be a little bit different, but it's a lot of studying, and, you take exams every month or so. So when those come up, you're studying more.
Thank you. So knowing that we've got brothers on the call that are considering applying for medical school and hopefully attending medical school, what would you say are some tips for the application process, the interview process, and then how, even when they get into medical school, some good things to keep in mind or to consider? Yoaav, let's start with you.
So I had gotten, when I was applying, I had kind of gotten into this prestigious kick. I wanted to go to the good med school. I wanted to go to the right med school. I wanted to go to where I was going to get the best chance of going to do a residency, and things like that. What I can tell you from experience now is that it really doesn't matter. If you get MD or DO at the end of your name at the end of med school, you're going to have, and you do a good job at that med school, you do a good job taking care of patients, impressing the people that are going to write your letters of recommendation, getting in early, staying late, you're going to go to residency wherever you want to be able to go to residency. It may not be your top choice, but it's going to be one of your top 3 choices. You're going to have a really good career. And so it's really more important to find a place that you're going to feel comfortable. Don't go to Harvard because it's Harvard. If you're from the West Coast and you're not going to have any family there and you don't know anybody, if you would rather go to, University of San Diego med school, it may not be quite as prestigious, but it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're going to be a doctor and you're going to be able to do the things you want to be able to do. The other thing that I can say is, when I applied, I had gotten I got a couple of acceptances up front. I got waitlisted at a lot of places, and a couple of them I wanted to go to more, and that included Ohio State, and that was financial for me. I was in state in Ohio. I was out of state in a lot of the other places I went, and the difference in cost was $50,000 the first year. And so for me, I wanted to stay in state, and I was waitlisted at Ohio State. And I got a call literally 8 days before the first day of class, and they accepted me off the wait list, and I changed my whole plans literally with a week. I didn't have anywhere to sleep. I didn't have anywhere to stay with, but I ended up going to Ohio State, and it was a great decision.
Thank you. Scott.
Yeah, so this is like pretty much the golden question when it comes to, what's the next step after undergrad. So in terms of application, it's very important, obviously, to do your best on your activities and, on your actual application. You want to sell yourself the best you can and make sure you're showing schools your skills that would make you a good physician. It's not all about, Mcat and your GPA, but you're going to make your life a lot harder, which means you really need to build up your resume and build up your extracurriculars before you do, when they can look over, maybe you have a lower GPA or a lower Mcat. In terms of interviewing, I'm on the interview student ambassador program at my school, and we have no say in anything, but we can tell if you're with a doctor and you're enjoying your time with them and you're telling them cool stories about why you want to be a doctor, that's what they want from students, because that's what life is, right? We want to see people that we could see potential in and that we like. So it is formal. You know, you're gonna attend these schools. They're gonna try to sell you, and you're gonna sell yourself. So just be the best you can be. And then in terms of once you do get an acceptance, this is a financial stressor that may happen to you. If you get accepted to a school, it is possible that they will have like a waiving window of about 2 weeks before that they need your deposit. So you may have to drop about $2,000 per school that you want to secure your spot for. No one told me this, and I was out $2,000 because of that. So, you know, if you're waiting on one acceptance from one school and another acceptance from another school, that's just a potential that may happen. So financially, it can be stressful just for the application's sake. In terms of attending medical school, there is nothing really I think you could do to prepare best for medical school. You just need to go in with a fresh mind and start thinking like a doctor. You know, you're going to want to make sure that, like, for example, I changed my study habits like 50 times in the first semester of medical school for me. Even now, I'm just changing up everything. So you need to be really flexible with, you know, how you're going to best approach different systems, different blocks, and then that will make you probably the best medical student that you could be.
Thank you. And Zach?
Sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
Oh, please. Yes,
I
absolutely.
think I cut Zach off, but with regards to the financial part of things, it really is a stressor acutely in that short-term period. But just remember, you're about to take $250,000 worth of loans from the government to go to med school, unless you are a lot wealthier than I was. And so really at the end of the day, don't let an extra $2,000 keep you from doing something that you really want to be able to do. It's going to hurt up front, but it's really at the end of the day, not the end of the world. It's a small amount of what you're going to have to take anyway. So do what you think is best for you, not what is best for your pocket in that short-term period.
Thank you. Zach?
Hey, can you hear me? Okay. So I agree with what Yoaav was saying. The financial piece, you know, Suze Orman says that educational debt's the best kind of debt to have. And that's the same exact case with medical education debt. As far as like other unique points that I have, I also agree with Yoaav about, I went to the University of Tennessee. I didn't go to like a super prestigious school. It's a good school from a clinical perspective, but it's not some research institution that's really heavy or that has an amazing name behind it. But I worked really, really hard at the University of Tennessee and at the University of Memphis before that. And people, you know, working hard almost always pays off in the end if you're truly working hard. And I think that applies regardless of where you go. And it'll prepare you for whatever comes next in life because you will push yourself outside your comfort zone. So I strongly echo that sentiment. I do think you should do some research, but I think you should do research that interests you. I think sometimes people just kind of sign up for the first thing that comes along in undergrad or during summer internships. You really should find something that you actually find interesting. Don't just do chemistry or physics research because you think you need to. Any sort of research, something that's academic, is going to look good and people are going to like it, and it's going to engage you in the process with people in medical schools who are also in academics. So if you have something interesting you can talk about that actually piques your interest, they can feel that. Another thing I'd recommend definitely is studying abroad. I took advantage of a lot of the University of Memphis has money for people that want to study abroad when they're undergrads, and they help offset the trips to a genocide and German history trip that took us to Germany and Poland. There was a trip we took to Peru. I went to Ghana and West Africa. I would strongly recommend travel. I think it does the body good in a lot of different ways. And it's something that you should take advantage of when you're an undergrad, when you have the ability and the resources financially from the schools often that will support you. The other thing would be hobbies. People like interesting people with interesting hobbies, not like affected weird hobbies, but like things you're truly just like interested in and into because it makes you a unique person. They don't want a bunch of robots coming in as medical students. These are ultimately, they're looking for people that, they think will take good care of patients in the future. But beyond that, they're looking for people that they're actually going to be interacting with for the next 4 years. And people tend to want to interact with people that they think are interesting and nice. So those are two things to keep in mind as you kind of gear up for an interview season and you prepare yourself to go forward in the medical school process. I definitely would practice interviewing. I wouldn't just wing it. So when you get to the point where you actually have interviews, I would, dress to the best, do the actual interviews. I'd practice them virtually and in person because there may be more virtual interviewing occurring in these upcoming seasons that's going to be completely different than anything we've ever seen.
Sorry, can I ask that a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm also very interested in the whole traveling and studying abroad as well. But so I was planning on traveling to, well, not this year anymore, but I was planning to travel to like Galapagos and like Peru in order to volunteer at like an eco preservation sort of area. Would you recommend going to areas which have volunteering experience for just like the medical field, or would you recommend like volunteering in all aspects of life in a way?
So is this directed at me since I just brought up study abroad? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a great question. None of my study abroad trips were related to medical stuff when I was an undergrad. They were just related to different portions so the one in Ghana was related to African colonial history of Europe. So that was the focus of the course. The one in Peru was actually related to Peruvian architecture and history, like Incan civilization history. And then the one in Germany was related to genocide in German history that focused on, what happened in Europe in the 1940s, and then also the German genocide in Namibia in the late 1800s. So mine were completely disconnected. I think that's kind of a personal choice, like what you're actually interested in. It doesn't hurt. I think you do need actual experience, like in a medical setting, like kind of getting some basic experiences. And if that happens to come through study abroad, then that's awesome. Like a medical volunteer trip where you can do your part as an undergrad, taking blood pressures, things like that, on a field site. But you can also do it, back home, back on your college campus. I did, when I was in undergrad, I got my medical volunteer experience by doing the St. Jude Happy Cart. So I lived in Memphis, and St. Jude is the children's cancer hospital. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. And we would, every weekend on Saturday from 8 to 12, I'd push a cart to the rooms on the 4 different floors of the main hospital and give like arts and crafts to kids and their families. And that was how I kind of got like familiar with what this would look like and what's going on and, do I like this environment? So I think that's important to do, but how you do it is up to you, I think.
Just piggybacking off of that, Eli, am I saying your name right? So I actually did something interesting where I went to Israel over the summer through a program called Onward Israel. It's like an extension of Birthright. So it is crazy subsidized. Like for you to live for about, I think it was 2 months in Israel. I worked in a biochemistry lab. I didn't live in the lab, but I lived in Beersheba and I worked in a biochemistry lab. And it was a perfect opportunity for me to do everything that you want. You get to see some cool lab work if that's what you like to do. I wouldn't suggest doing lab work if you don't like it. I would say, honestly, you're way better off going and being with doctors. I shadowed an anesthesiologist at Stony Brook doing C-sections. That was like, I was like, all right, I want to be a doctor. This is cool. I saw a lot of, at Binghamton, there's a hospital, UHS, which is right across the street. I would wake up at 6 a.m. and make sure that I was there for ENT surgeries in the mornings, because because I just loved it. I wanted to be around doctors. I thought it was cool. And that's going to be an easy sell when you're in an interview and people ask why you want to be a doctor, and you have all of the experience with doctors, and you say, yeah, I love it. That's where I want to be. I want to be with patients.
Yeah, I was actually planning to do Magenta Vita Dome this year, but unfortunately it was canceled because of the COVID-19 stuff.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of medical schools know that. It's kind of a wonky situation. People are taking MCATs that are shorter. People are, like doing online interviews. So as scary as it is saying that you're not getting what, you were going to build for your resume, I think that there's a bit of knowledge on the medical school side saying, all right, we know that people are going to have, March to whenever this ends missing, because, it's how it has to be.
Well, I am in my sophomore year, so I still have got a little bit of time.
I would also try to emphasize, I think Zach touched on this, his trips abroad had nothing to do with medicine. Even if you're not traveling, if you're doing extracurricular stuff that is not associated with medicine, but is showing that you have, the big thing in medicine right now is to find doctors that are going to be empathetic, that are going to be able to have an understanding of how patients are feeling when they come see them. So, if you're out there trying to raise money for multiple sclerosis by doing a fraternity philanthropy event that you organize, that you put on, that you can show it has not been done at our campus. We raised $10,000. I work closely with the American Cancer Society or whatever. That's not going into hospitals. That's not shadowing doctors. But it does show that you have an understanding of, I have to do more than just be a smart guy. Intelligence is not everything in medicine. If the patients don't like you, you're not going to get anywhere. And so people who are interviewing you are trying to find people that they would want to go to as a doctor, not just people who are going to get all A's, because that's everybody that's applying. Everyone who you're applying with is going to get a good MCAT score, a great GPA, a competitive major at a competitive university. What is going to be different about you? And frankly, for me, it was the fraternity. I was lucky enough to be an undergrad Supreme Counselor. I had a lot of experience working with board of directors stuff, Robert's Rules of Order. I got to talk about that with my interviewers that at multiple medical schools that they'd never heard of a 22-year-old or 21-year-old, I guess at the time when I was interviewing, who had been on basically a board of directors. And so that was something that set me apart, that showed that I could talk to adults, that adults valued my opinion, that people wanted to work with me and invite me into their community. And so I think that was a lot more valuable than, I sat and, helped take the monkeys out of the cage and put the monkeys back in the cage at the end of the day while the scientists did some work that I didn't understand.
So piggybacking off of that, would you say for a resume, should I include more medical volunteering things or things that I'm more proud of personally?
You should do both.
Because it's like a 2-page maximum, right? So like there's a certain amount of space. So would you say prioritizing the medical volunteering jobs or prioritizing more what I find to be more characteristic of my personality as a person?
I'm happy to take it. Does somebody else want to? Zach, you're probably better at the resume stuff than I am. You're our national secretary.
Zach will be right back. He had to step away real quick, so we can save that for Zach. Or if Scott or y'all have things to add, and then we can get Zach's take on that in a moment.
I personally think that a resume is something that can be finagled to include a lot of things in a short amount of space. So you can add a lot to your resume without filling 2 pages. And I would have no doubt that between Melissa and Libby and the Supreme Council people that we have, we'd be happy to do another one of these on resume building. And we'd be happy to try to work if you want to email somebody with an example and we can help try to edit it for you. I know your undergrad colleges or probably have people that'll help with the resume stuff as well, but I would include as much as you can in as short a space as you can do it. The more you include, the better you're going to look. It's not going to be bad to have more stuff.
Okay, thank you. And for Melissa, I have a ton of questions, but should I just save them to the end after we're done with your stuff?
No, keep going. You're crushing it. And others, if you've got questions too, raise a hand, flag us down, or put them in the chat, and we'll get all of them answered. So keep going.
I'll go.
You got it.
So for Yoaav specifically, since you're the OR, I've been like going back and forth between if I want to be in a clinic or in the hospital. And it's been like the deciding factor for me in my head has been so far like the amount of stress and the amount of like the emotional toll it has going into surgery every day and seeing people unsuccessfully go through the surgery and perhaps perish in the surgery. So how do you say you deal with that stress and how does it affect you on a daily basis?
So two parts of that question. And the first part of that question for all of you on there, and Scott included, you don't know what you want to do yet. You may think you know what you want to do, but you have no real idea what you want to do yet. I went into medical school, I played soccer, I ran track, I loved sports. That was what my passion was. And I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I did my first rotation as orthopedic surgery. I was going to, get the best letter of recommendation. I was going to kill it. And I hated it. It was cracking open a knee and doing it day in, day out. For 3 weeks, I didn't do anything other than knee replacements. And I was so bored of it by the end of it that I couldn't imagine having to do that as a career. And I went into the exact opposite arena. I went in from surgery, I went into internal medicine. And yeah, I like doing procedures. And so I'm back to, I've done further subspecialty, but it couldn't be farther away from orthopedic surgery than it is. And so I don't want you to go in, you're a sophomore, you said? I wouldn't be looking at what kind of doctor you want to be, just the idea that you want to be a physician, you have an idea of why you want to be a physician, and you're open to those, you're open to seeing everything that you can do. When you get into your third and fourth year medical school rotations, when you're doing the, surgical residency or rotation, the medicine rotation, dermatology, urology, whatever it is, find the thing that you get up in the morning and you're excited to go to. And that's probably what you want to do. With regards to the stress in the OR, there's stress in everything. Zach just told you he sees 40 patients a day in his outpatient clinic. You can't imagine how much stress a clinic puts on a physician. Insurers want notes signed within 24 hours. So you're doing 40 patients that you're seeing, plus 40 notes, plus phone calls, plus calling in prescriptions, plus calling the insurance companies for prior authorizations. Frankly, to me, that's more stressful than going in and yes, occasionally my surgeries are not successful or things go bad. It is not the norm. And if it is the norm, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But it is really satisfying when you do a good job and somebody goes home the next day feeling 100% better. And so to me, that's less stressful than having to just crank through a bunch of patients, listen to the angry daughter who, because she couldn't get in yesterday and she could only get in today, she's going to take the 20 minutes of your visit to yell at you. And you have to sit there with a smile on your face and talk to them about, try to get into how they're feeling and what you can do for them. So remember, there's stress on every level, and it's going to be like that no matter what you do.
Okay, thanks. If anyone else has a question, I'll take a break.
Other questions for our squad here?
Okay, I'll go again. So, cause I live in Canada. I live in Toronto, and here I don't know how it is in the States, but here you have to get like a 520 on your Mcat to even be considered, really. And it's pretty tough getting into the Canadian medical schools because there's so little, and there's so many international students as well as people trying to get into medicine nowadays. So, would you say it'd be better to go to like an international medical school with like my first or second run with the Mcat and I can't get into Canadian school, or should I keep on trying to go and try to stay local?
I could probably jump in because I have no problem sharing. I got a 504 on my Mcat. I got into multiple medical schools. And the reason why was because I used things like ZBT to build my resume like really well. I went to the right people and made sure that my application was really good. There are ways to do it. Getting into a school in the Northeast of the United States is challenging, obviously. But that, it kind of depends on what you want. If you want to be in medical school as soon as possible, then, you'll do what you have to do. I really think though, if you like really try your best on your MCAT, you do how well you do, you build your application the best you can. My friend at medical school with me that have retaken it, they've done +or-3. And I think, honestly, this is just for me. It's because I think it's an exhausting exam. I told myself after I took it once that I'm not taking it again. I'm just going to try my best. And I'm not going to lie, I did not think I was going to get into medical school. I saw that score on the screen and I started crying. So, you need to use everything that you can. If you really want to look in going to out of America, you could look at some of the match rates into the States. That might be helpful to you. Some of these schools tend not to do as well matching with the United States. That's just the truth. Speaking from a DO perspective, some DOs have problems getting into some residencies. That's just the truth of it. So I'm going to be a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And because everything just merged between the MD and the DO programs, it's kind of a little weird about what's going on, but we apply to the same programs. So I'm going to be going to a residency where maybe 10 of us will be DOs, 10 of us will be MDs, or it'll be more or less. But I could also talk to you more about DO school if you want. But in terms of going out of the United States, I definitely think that it's for some people that want to get their life going, want to get to medical school. I also know that it is sometimes pricey. So it's going to be up to you about what you value.
Thank you. Okay, another question. So for me, I really enjoy studying biology and medicine and all that stuff. That's why I'm doing this. But it's sort of hard for me to stay motivated and stick to a schedule consistently over the days through the week, because I'm studying for the MCATs this year, unfortunately, even though it's the best time to study for your MCATs actually. But it's sort of mentally exhausting just to study from 9 to 5 every day and try to keep the information in your head without hating it at the end of the day, So how would you recommend going about your study schedule, and how would you say you'd schedule your day to fit your needs?
I can speak to this. So I came from University of Memphis, and I didn't do that well in the MCAT, honestly. I went to medical school, and so I had more trouble in undergrad studying consistently and following a study schedule, basically take-home message. And then I went to the University of Tennessee, and I actually medicine was the right, it clicked. I don't know how else to say it. It was something I enjoyed studying, which makes a huge difference, right? Because you're actually enjoying the material more. But it won't sugarcoat it. It is like drinking out of a fire hydrant. It's a lot of information, a whole lot of information that comes in the first 2 years in particular, which is your kind of preclinical time when they're teaching you kind of about normal and not normal human functions. And but I found it very, I don't know, it was interesting to me. It wasn't as hard to pace myself. I actually found that I was more of a kind of person. I didn't actually go to class that often. I was more of unless it was a hands-on, I was kind of the person that would take the podcast of the class, and which was allowed, and you could then study off that at your own pace. I found that it worked best for me to kind of make it like a, 8 to 5 kind of situation for studying, and then give myself the nights off, because you're going to go crazy if you do that all the time. When it comes to step 1, which there's 3 different licensing exams, most people care about step 1 and step 2 the most. Step 3 is more of kind of a form process, but step 1, yeah, he's got it right there. They're changing it to pass fail, so I don't know how that changes the approach, the strategy to step 1. Probably people just start gaming step 2, because that one's still going to be scored. But step 1 is the test you take at the end of second year, and that was a very intense month, like 4 to 6 weeks in my life where I was studying like probably 80 hours a week, probably for a good 5 to 6 weeks. And that there's no great way around that other than just like kind of pump yourself up and be like, this is awesome, like every morning, and then just dive into it and give yourself 1 day off a week. But as far as your routine studying, like during your first 2 years, that's how I adjusted to it. When you get to clinicals, like in your 3rd and 4th year of medical school, it's a different type of studying. Most of the stuff you're learning, like while you're on the actual clerkship, and then they typically have like guides to help prepare you for the actual exams. And most medical students love that part of medical school.
And does physics and like chemistry and like orgo and all that stuff, does that really like help you in med school?
Every day I'm using organic chemistry. No, I'm kidding. I think it helped me. I think it helped me develop thought processes about how to approach problems and how to think scientifically. But as far as like the intricacies of OChem or PChem or what have you, no, I don't use those on a daily basis. I don't do research. I'm like a clinician, so it helps me from a scientific like approach point of view and to approach things that way. But I'm not using those day in and day out here in dermatology. No.
Let me put it more bluntly. What you study your first 2 years of medical school and what you're studying right now to get into medical school bears very little resemblance to what you're going to do starting the first day of your 3rd year of medical school for the rest of your life. This is an opportunity for them to try to wash you out. This is an opportunity for them to push you and make sure that you have the work ethic that you're going to need when you do get the phone call at 2 a.m. and you're 47 years old and your 8-year-old at home has been crying all night and you still need to go into the hospital and take care of a patient. I don't want you to think about, you're saying you're having a difficult time enjoying and pushing through biology and Mcat studying. You're supposed to. It's not supposed to be enjoyable, and it bears very little resemblance to what you're actually going to enjoy in your career when you get out and start practicing as a physician.
Yeah, totally agree.
If the one thing that I will add that really helped the people that I was mentoring in ZBT was, I don't know, so you're a sophomore, right? I assume that you have brothers that are also pre-med?
They're all in Ivy basically in business. I'm basically the only one in
All right. Well, so this could be a perfect example, right, for you to, find guys that are pre-med and bring them into ZBT. But anyway, something that I think you can do, right? It is challenging to stay motivated. Even I'm finding it challenging to stay motivated in medical school right now, just because I'm at my desk every day. But the best thing that you could do is set goals for yourself every day. Try to meet them, and I really work well by talking to other people about it. If you have any other friends that are studying for the Mcat that, you're studying for the Mcat already? Sophomore year?
Yeah, because I figured I'd do bad the first time. So I'm giving myself an extra year to do well.
All right. Well, there's something to be said about starting very early. I don't always think it's the smartest idea, You may tire yourself out a bit, which, that could just be you. But, when it comes to studying for the Mcat, it's not an easy thing. So if you wanted to, start talking to other people that are taking the Mcat, and, some of the concepts that's how I handled it. Was I had a team of people that were all going to take the Mcat over that summer. And, we weren't studying the same, but at least we, if I had a question and I was like, I do not know this concept at all in physics, right? Are we going to see it on the Mcat? Probably not. But the odds of you knowing it better from talking it out loud with someone increases significantly.
Well, yeah, another large part why I'm writing it this year is because my sister's also writing it this year. So like we're one door apart. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, a more of a question, more personal to me. Since I've just turned 20, and I'm having a hard time transitioning from my childhood habits to more adult habits, in that of like my work ethic and like what I do in my free time and so on and so forth. And it's sort of dawned upon me this year that I'm no longer a child, and I'm gonna be independent this year, and I gotta start doing like everything for myself, and I can't rely on my parents, and I can't rely on my elders, and I am the elder now. So how did you go through that process? How did you deal with all the new information? How did you make new habits for yourself in order to succeed as an adult rather than as a teenager?
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Yeah, that's a pretty, challenging thing. I mean, I'm 23. I just turned 23 in January. I think you could ask people particularly in our stage of life, when we're applying to medical school, there's a lot of transitionings happening, cognitively, like all the biological things that are going on, right? We're trying to figure out how to handle our own independence, and it really comes down to having a good support system. If you're studying for the Mcat and you are waking up, studying, not eating, not maybe sleeping as long as you should be, not taking care of yourself, you will not do well. So although, there are a lot of things from like when we're younger, like take care of the ones you love, right? This should be more than ever right now during COVID-19 should be the time that you're talking to your brothers saying, guys, I'm just having a rough time. I have no motivation, help. And they'll probably be there for you. And it's taking a step of maturity and making sure you're asking for help when you need it. And it seems like you're already doing a pretty good job considering that you're asking people that have been in your shoes. I've been in your shoes a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years, whatever. So yeah, continue to make sure you're asking for help. And this is a profession of mentoring. So, I'm sure that you could always schedule a talk with the pre-health department at your school. If you really have any questions, I can put my email like in the Q&A. So, if you have more questions in the future, you can hit us up. That's what this is for. We're trying to help. So then this is a difficult navigation to get to medical school, to become an intern, to become a resident, to become an attending. So, you'll be in our position one day, hopefully. So, just keep, you got to keep at it. And that's pretty much the life of a physician. You just got to keep going.
And just remember that being a physician is like 80% of your job is social interaction. So you have to be able to go out and have a good time. You have to be able to have conversations with people, having, going out and having fun, getting to a football game. We might not have it this fall, but we'll see. Getting out to the bar with your fraternity brothers if you're old enough, and you're 20 in Canada, so that should be fine. And, you know, all of those things are actually very important. You're not going to learn how to talk to people by putting your head in an Mcat book. It is very important to study for the Mcats. But if you only study for the Mcats, if you decide that being an adult means I have to work all the time, then that's going to be the wrong way of looking at how to get ready to be in the medical profession.
Okay, thank you. And I'd definitely like to stay in contact with all you guys in the future. I think the more connections, the better, especially in this field. Speaking of connections, would you say it would be more important to get your volunteering in, or rather to build like good connections with the professors at your school or other schools or any? Or are they equally important?
I mean, you need good letters of recommendation. And a very good letter of recommendation goes a very, very long way. So you know, just an aside, I remember I was applying for cardiology fellowship. I was in my internal medicine residency. I was talking to my program director, and he needed to get my file out for some reason, and he handed my medical school to residency application file out, and he left it out and left the room to answer a question and was gone for 20 minutes. And I looked at the top sheet, which was the letter of recommendation I got from one of the cardiologists at Ohio State, writing a letter of recommendation for me. And the letter was unbelievable. You don't get to see those letters of recommendation, so I had never seen it. And I saw writing on the side that said, we need to get this kid, look at this letter that he sent around. And that was just because I showed up early, stayed late. I made jokes with the guy. He was a big Ohio State football fan. I'm not. I was a big Penn State football fan. So we gave each other crap all the time about football. And he liked me. And so he wrote me a good letter of recommendation, and that certainly helped. But you don't need to, but the one letter is what you need. So you also need to get the volunteering, and you also need to have the extracurriculars. So you have to find the one guy that's going to get you a very good letter. And then you also have to do all the rest of the stuff.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, so I have one. So my biggest problem in pursuing kind of my higher education has been money, kind of. And that also has become a problem in kind of trying to get hours and experience in the medical field, as a lot of internships or shadowing is unpaid, and I have to work year round to be able to afford my education. So trying to find like a volunteering time where I could volunteer, but it wouldn't interfere with my work as well, has been difficult. So I was just wondering if you had any suggestions about things.
Yeah, highlight that when you're applying. I mean, you know, you need to show, look how hard I've worked just to be able to make ends meet so that I can do what I want to do. You know, if you're doing something and you're working 2 jobs and you're getting good grades and you got a good MCAT score, that's a great resume. If you don't get in the first time around and you take a low paid internship for a 1-year thing in between, then now you've got that covered as well. And a lot of people take a year in between, as Scott pointed out too. So, you know, I got lucky. I did not have to carry a bunch of jobs and try to struggle with finances as an undergrad. And I think that probably put me at a disadvantage when I got to med school and realized I was on my own. So I would highlight that. I think that's a really good thing.
And Griff, one other thing that you may want to consider that honestly, I really regret every single day of medical school, because it would have helped me so much. Become a medical scribe. There are tons of different like companies and stuff that you could get paid to just be with patients. I don't know where you're located, but in New York, I think there's like, I got like 5 different companies emailing me at one point when I was looking to apply, because I needed like a certain number of hours and I couldn't reach. So I was reaching out to a few of them. That's a great way to get paid and also to really prepare well for a lot of these, clinical interactions that you're going to have to do medical school.
Thank you.
Well, we have passed our time, so thank you, a million thank yous to all of our panelists and for all of you for your great questions. I know Scott has put his information in the chat, and so and has offered for everyone to reach out. So and I think Yoaav's typing his as well. So please take advantage of these amazing alumni resources that you have in your ZBT network, because not everyone has access to these amazing individuals. So really hope that you all take advantage of that. And Zach and Yoaav have also put their information in. So thank you all for joining us today. Check out our calendar. We have more ZBT from home events. And to the resume point, tomorrow actually at 6 o'clock Eastern, we have an alumnus from the University of Southern California that actually works for ZipRecruiter. And so he is going to really be focused on resumes and job search and job prep. So take advantage if that is of interest to you. And thank you all so much for your time. And again, to Scott and Yoaav and Zach, we cannot thank you enough for giving your time and your brains and just the care that you have for ZBT. So thank you all, and everyone stay healthy and have an awesome evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.